Good evening, everybody. Oh, perfect timing, Roger. I was just coming off of mute to say, why don't we give everybody another minute or so? Because I knew Roger was going to join, and there he appears. I emailed and texted Davon and Kathy. Neither one of them replied. So I'm not sure if they will be joining us. And Matt Stegman is out of town today, so he won't be able to join us. Right, now that the child's device is turned on, Commissioner Ellis will be joining us for all of his, I shouldn't say all of his, but his multiple proposals. But he is coming off of another meeting, so he'll be with us closer to 6:30. So I thought we would flip the order from what I sent it in the email and start with the redistricting. Apologies for the typo. I think I wrote something completely random in the email that was not redistricting. Hopefully you knew what I meant. The proposal we had was from Commissioners Willis and Lee, but of course we have a lot of other, I shouldn't say we have a lot of other proposals. The city council has the proposals from the city council president and the other council members. So I wanted to hear, Emily, Roger, what are your opinions? Should we try to move forward with Commissioner Willis and Lee's proposal, which I forget which one of the county council proposals it mirrors, but if I remember correctly, it does mirror one of them.
Are y'all on mute? This is just one idea, but tell me what you all think. Perhaps move it forward, but then allow the full commission to reconcile. Maybe do we want to go with the commission, the other one, or or this one, or come up with something in the middle? As a subcommittee, I would think that, maybe our job would be only to determine whether it's a good proposal to move forward or not. And it does look like it's a reasonable, attempt at this very complicated issue. I don't know. That's one thought. Now, if that muddies the waters too much and anyone feels differently, let's just go with the other one. Then, for consideration, by I mean, not go with us and vote for it necessarily, but for consideration, then we can just go with the other one.
Emily, I see you shaking your head. You're on mute, though.
Take myself off mute. I agree. I guess I just had a question because, there are a bunch of proposals about this issue specifically, but I wanted to be clear exactly on the election of the members. Some of the language that was proposed, I don't know if it was a while ago, it was a sample from, I think, Seattle, that the first four members would elect the fifth member. The first would be, maybe the first two were elected by someone, and then I just wanted to be totally clear on how the members would be appointed or elected and by who. So if someone knows that.
I would have to go back, or maybe if we could find it, we could pull it up. But that's a really good question. That's where the rubber meets the road right there on how independent it actually is, right?
Yeah. And I'll pull up what I am thinking.
Mm-hmm. Because I'll say that when you see commissions like these, they all probably differ in this respect, because as independent and apolitical as people want to make it, people want to also make it political. So sometimes you'll see it where one party, the two major parties, each get a member. Sometimes you'll have, a member other than the dominant party, and then that leaves people to put other people on, and
Right.
and then you're right. Who selects? Is it the mayor selecting, or is it the council
And I know
members
there's
get
a
a
lot
certain
of
number?
issues with, the president of the city council having a lot of power. Maybe that's something we want to be concerned about. The
Mhm.
language I was thinking was a while ago when there were reference materials for when I believe this was first talked about was from Seattle, where it says it's a 5-member commission. The mayor appoints 2 members. By a 2/3 vote, the city council appoints 2 members. Then the 4 members are appointed by a majority. The 5th member is appointed by a majority vote of the first 4 members,
Hmm. That's interesting.
which seems complicated.
Yeah.
But
And
maybe it's good to even out the power. I'm not sure.
Yeah. That one seems to have a few things like that 2/3 provision seems to tie some people in knots, actually, in a way.
Hey, Emily, this is Ben Guffeline. Can you hear me okay? Just walking to my car.
Yes.
I'll say that in other examples of other commissions where the appointed members elect the, I guess, last remaining member, typically that member, which is voted upon by the body, if you will, ultimately is specifically elected to take the position as president of the board. I believe it's done to effectively get buy-in from everybody, that whomever is leading the group is, again, not biased in one way or another. So that's what I have seen in other situations. I don't know if Seattle specifically provided for that individual to be the president or the head of that board, but
it doesn't look like the Seattle version does, because it then says the commission shall elect a chair from among its members. Perhaps in practice, that's how it works out.
But then it's weird. It doesn't say what the chair does, but it does say that there will be, what does it call it? Like a director, or the districting master says we'll come up with the plan that will be then adopted. But it doesn't say what the chair does.
I would assume then it's just for purposes of maintaining order that, like, the chair just conducts the meetings.
Right.
this is Ben again. I think if you pull up Zeke Cohen's legislation, I think it does mirror as part of Seattle's work, and they speak, at least have some more examples of what the chair specifically does, but just as a point of reference.
All is to say, I just wanted to be more clear on who the members would be.
I have to relocate to a different desk, so I'll be right back.
One thing that's interesting about this, I don't want to, torpedo any of these proposals, because I'm actually very much in favor of a redistricting commission. But the one piece of this that at least the Seattle proposal seems to suggest is that the current elected members have a huge role or do appoint the members that are going to be doing the redistricting. And, one element of the politics of redistricting is two things. One is partisanship, and then the other, in other words, both parties try to game the districts in such a way that will benefit them. And in our city, it's dominated Democrat. But again, let's put that aside. Usually both parties are interested in trying to get as much space on the map or as much intensity in the map to elect their own candidates. But secondly, it's usually that maps are drawn in a way to benefit the members who are currently elected. So, in other words, you don't want to draw yourself out or have somebody else draw you out. Whereas, that might be not necessarily, that might be in the best interest of the public to draw out a district that might be difficult for a current member to run in. So anyway, I only say that just as a, boring, American government 101 sort of thing. Because there's no, party or citizen appointees. It's mayor appoints and council appoints. But again, I'm not going to challenge it. I just wanted to lay that out there for fun.
Well, to your earlier point, I wonder if because the Cohen proposal mirrors so closely what Commissioner Dean Willis put forward, perhaps it would be worth it to take both to the full commission and say, look, these are similar. Here's what they are. The committee thought it worth bringing both to your attention.
Well, what are your thoughts on that versus it looks like Council Member Cohen's his idea is that the office of the comptroller randomly selects one commissioner from each existing district and one commissioner to represent the city as a whole.
Seems like a lot of people.
Yeah. Right. I guess, like, to your point, Roger, do you want the members of it to be tied to certain districts? Is that helpful? Or is that does that create problems, biases with redistricting?
Sorry, I was trying to pull up Council Member Cohen's proposal too. Not necessarily. There's always going to be politics in the process in one shape or form. I mean, I guess in typically when you're redistricting, if you have members of the district that have an opportunity to participate, I think, that's probably good for the citizenry because those districts are going to change. And then you might, if you appoint the right person, someone that could speak to, hey, this district looks a little weird and we're not going to feel very represented over here. And you've drawn a bunch of people into the district that perhaps have no knowledge of the issues in our part of town, and that's where that could be valuable, I think, to have that perspective of a commissioner that lives in the existing districts, because the boundaries are going to change somewhere, right? They're either going to get a little smaller, a little bigger, or stretch one way or the other. So in some ways, I think that's pretty cool.
The other thing is that in Cohen's proposal, you're disqualified if you have an elected position, or if you want to become a candidate for an elected position. Maybe that helps.
Also kind of cool. I mean, it sounds like he's going to some lengths to make sure that there's a little bit of independence from those who are currently in office. That what you just said is there, and then the other piece, giving some a little bit of power to people who live in different parts of the city. Make sure that they have at least somebody to represent them. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Again, I don't mind both.
I like his
both
proposal the
going
best.
forward. Yeah, I kind of do too. And I know John really, really, really well. And I think he was looking for an opportunity, looking for a model. And I'd be interested. I wish he were here. I'd be interested in hearing what he thought about that.
Well, it looks like there's two from him. He like co-introduced one and then he introduced it by himself. I think the one that he introduced by himself is better, personally.
Yeah, I'm having trouble pulling him up. I'm going to try again. Sorry, Emily. Well, let's go back to your question, though, which you were getting at, Emily. You were, so I initially had recommended that we just push all of them forward and let the the full commission hash it out. However, if we really want to kind of limit what's considered and we really think something looks really good, it's kind of smart to have the committee throw something out that maybe doesn't give too much wiggle room to pick something that we don't like. So anyway, going in that direction too.
Well, and I'm also thinking realistically, even if the commission puts forward Commissioner Willis's idea, is the council going to go for it when they have 3 of their own pending? Is it just banging our heads on the wall?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, so Cohen introduced 2 pieces of legislation that relate to this. He introduced both the charter amendment itself that authorizes it, and then he also introduced, I think we did also a provision within the code that would further specify the specifics of the commission. So I would just make sure you're looking at both, if I recall correctly, what we did.
I think you're right, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, because the top of them have different captions. I, of course, have misplaced my paper copies, but I remember the top. One of them, I think, says ordinance.
Yeah, correct. I'm looking at it now. I don't know if I'm able to share screen or not. I always use Zoom, so this one would be clunky. It's just a matter of whether I can get the link to come up, though. That's what I'm having a problem with right now.
Right. The one that's the ordinance is extremely specific. I guess that's the one that would have more information.
Right. Enabling. Roger, Ben did give you presenting abilities.
Thank you. Let me see what I can do. Again, the only problem is I've got the list and then there's links, but I'm having a heck of a time getting the link to be followed. Let me double check that I'm not missing something. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, I take that back. I was able to pull it off. So let me see what I can do here, Ben. Sorry, I'm just looking around. Share. And then I'm going to share this Word document. I think it's the right one. So can you see this document? This is the list of redistricting proposals, right? Now, if you want me to pull up any one in particular, I think I've got a couple of them up already. Oh, I'm playing dead and I got a pot pie in the oven for a kid. Can I go quickly remove it? So hold on.
Absolutely. I'm proud to say this is my little document that I put together. And that could be why the links are not working as well.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, you're quite all right. And looking at the document, I said I was the one that put the links in, so that could explain why they're not working.
No, I did get them to work. So let me try to stop share and I'll share the link that I pulled up. I did get an ordinance to pop up, so it just didn't look like it was popping up. So let me give this a shot. I believe this will get us there. So are you seeing this? This is the redistricting ordinance establishment for the purpose of establishing the composition, the redistricting commission. Looks like it's introduced and referred to Board of Elections at this point in time.
I was gonna say, this is Nina. If you click that document there, it'll open up the whole document.
Right here?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nina. Let's see if we get lucky. Haha, perfect. Thank you. And working with us citizens, you're like, geez, just click on the link. Sorry.
No, it's not the most user-friendly website, so sometimes it can be quite tricky.
I appreciate your expertise. I'm just embarrassed. So, thank you. So let's see. This just kind of gives a preamble, and what we're looking for is which particular piece, how the commissioners are selected. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's what we're focused on.
Commission shall be.
If you want to
Here we
search for
go.
selection, but
Yep,
Yeah,
I think
we've
it's
got
right
it.
there. It might be the next section below. So the composition is what kind of demographic areas they would be within, and then I think the next page would say who. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So it has a little bit of both. Looks like it has an application process versus appointment.
Huh? I like this a lot.
me too.
I mean, it's better than Seattle, I think, but that's my opinion. I like it because I like the application process idea. I think that gives an opportunity for people to screen for, background and knowledge. I see that as we go back up, and sorry, I'm moving around a lot. One member from each district of the city council. So that gives an opportunity for a member to kind of say, wow, this district is getting split across 4 districts. And I don't think the people in Roland Park know what we're doing over here in, Northeast Baltimore. We need some continuity to the districts, that kind of thing. Member who represents the city as a whole, nice. And then I like the idea of 2 subject matter experts too, because redistricting is a very, as you all know, very complex process. Now, who they are, that's where the application process comes in. So at least it appears to me that someone is going to get a chance to screen. So the comptroller shall screen. Some people may say, why the comptroller? And other people may say, why not?
Well, theoretically, wouldn't you say the comptroller shouldn't care about how the districts are aligned because they're?
I was just thinking the same thing, right? Of all people, they might be a little less biased.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I mean, I think of all the citywide electeds, that would be it. Can you pardon me for 1 second?
As long as you can pardon my child making noises in the background.
Mine's a little older and won't be making noises in the background yet, unless he's going to play the guitar. Sorry, I'm embarrassing. Your shepherd's pie, I think, is finished, but check it out. It's and check the middle before you do anything else, because I might have screwed it up. So anyway, sorry about that. I'm back. Do you all want to see more of this? I feel like I'm in control, and that should worry you.
Emily, what about you? I've looked at it before. It's just been a little while, so of course my brain couldn't remember the details.
My thoughts are, I like this proposal a lot. I mean, to maybe this is not the right question, but does it have to be that the proposal first to introduce a commission at all, and then the more specifics on the composition, application, and selection also has to be adopted, I assume?
Can you rephrase that? I didn't follow.
Right. So I guess since there are two proposals, one to establish a commission, and then the second one to have the more specifics, do we recommend both? I assume.
I think procedurally we probably have to, because if you don't establish the commission, then there's nothing to establish. Maybe I'm wrong. Ben, what do you think?
I was just going to say,
Nina, what do you think?
only one of them is a charter amendment, and
Right.
obviously one supports the other, and vice versa.
Okay.
Roger, to your point, you absolutely obviously need the charter amendment before you're able to have anything else actually take effect. So I think it seems smart to make sure that in any discussion that you have both, because I'm not sure the charter amendment works independently. I don't think you get the strength of the vision without it necessarily, or I should say the fullness of the vision without it. So whether or not you actually need to recommend the bill that is not a charter amendment, I'm not sure that's on the commission to speak to. I think it's able to say whatever it wants, frankly, but in terms of actual charter proposals, that is.
Nina, were you going to add something too?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, the group could concur that the best path forward for redistricting, you believe, would include a commission, but could leave the door open on what that commission's like composition would be. And given that like the scope of the work for this body is charter based, I think it would make sense to, you can say that things that have been introduced align with what you believe would be the proper way, but the recommendations that you would be making would be on charter amendments specifically. And the reason why they are two separate pieces is because, we want to keep the charter as narrow as possible, and leave the more like kind of like fungible details in the code so that if they need to be adjusted from time to time, it doesn't necessarily need to go back to the voters and go through that entire process. So you want to kind of make sure you have behind the charter wall everything that you want to really remain long-term and things that may need to be tweaked more frequently in code.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nina.
It does, I guess unless the commission really feels strongly about one and wants to kind of write it into stone, because it can also then be easier to change through code and through legislation. And there's benefits and cost of that, of course. But given that this is new and there might be some need to make adjustments, I see that point. Plus, we may simply not be able to agree on what's the right approach.
The right specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been thinking the last couple minutes that where Commissioner Willis's proposal is the big overall picture, that the two pieces of the Cohen proposal really hone in on the specifics. But to Nina's point, you wouldn't want all those specifics in the actual charter. So Emily is switching locations, but she says her vote is to push forward on the redistricting commission. Roger, are you in agreement?
Yeah, sure am. That's great. At least it's enabling it to happen, and that's cool.
Okay. So I'll put in my notes that we recommend the Cohen proposal, but I'll also add in there that we'd like to to at least let the full commission be aware of the ordinance. Oh, I remembered the word. Let them be aware of the ordinance so that they know the proposed details. But I would recommend we follow Nina's strategy and say we recommend the commission. It's not our place to recommend the specifics.
And then if I might just add my 2 cents on just general like boards and commissions, one thing that is not included in the format for the ordinance of the commission is staffing responsibility for the commission. And then it does require, for some reason, rather than the funding for procuring the mapping consultant to come out of like just paid for as afforded by the annual ordinance of estimates, it requires it to come specifically from the mayor's office budget. So just a few kind of things to think about, details that typically get left out when people are more focused on the composition of a board or commission versus the actual carrying out of the work or the duties. That staffing component is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's true. Think about where we would be right now if we didn't have the staffing. And there we go.
And the budget. I can't see anyone wanting to give up a part of their budget.
Yeah. Especially to hire consultants for redistricting, which are really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that, excuse me one moment. He wanted to access more destructive items to paint and put stickers everywhere. All right, Roger, until Emily joins us back again, I think that takes care of us on redistricting. And Ben, are you able to elevate Andy so he can talk, or can Andy talk while he's still a attendee? I don't know how to do this. Ooh. Okay, I don't know if I did it or if Ben did it, but we've got Andy. All right, so the next 2 things on our list were the 2 items from Andy related to the legislative reference, and then the one related to referendums. And Andy, I feel like I also forgot to put on the list your one about having political representation on the Charter Review Commission. Did that one get dropped off?
I think that was on your list. Referendum.
I can hear you very, very little.
I think you said referendum and proportional representation. Is that better?
Almost. Worse.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. WebEx always changes which mic it uses to one that I'm not sure even exists. So I think the proportional representation one was in your list.
Okay.
So I mean, my thought about the 2 is Emily back?
She's back.
Okay. My thought about the 2.
I'm sorry.
No problem. The legislative reference ones, I sent an email about this morning. I think Councilperson Ramos's solution to this is better than my solution to it. And so I think that we should encourage that to go forward. I don't know that I don't remember whether I saw a draft of it or not, but my suggestion there is instead of recommending specific wording, we just say something like the Baltimore City Charter Commission believes the charter should be amended to clarify the role of the Department of Legislative Reference. We understand members of the council are working on this and recommend that any change and the two things that I say here, provide more independence for the department and focus the mission as a professional organization that drafts, publishes, and archives all law, regulation, and policy for the city of Baltimore. I'm open to wording tweaks and things like that, but my suggestion is not that we approve Councilperson Ramos's proposal, or that we, I don't know, more that we give guidance to that hers can fit in. And I sent that wording I didn't just come up with that off the top of my head. I wrote it out this morning. So in the email that I sent, there is that wording there. So we can talk about that.
Ben added in the notes that the councilwoman's draft doesn't exist yet. So your proposed wording, if you weren't here yet, I was going to read it off your email. So I'm glad you were here to read it yourself. It makes sense to me. Roger and Emily, do you have thoughts? Do you remember what this is all about?
I remember what this is about, and I agree as well. I look back at my old notes.
I am admittedly catching up, so apologies. Continue if you wish.
So there was I had put in two things about this a while ago, and they basically said more like basically return to the pre-2018 status quo, in which this was selected by an independent commission and it was permanent. And I think Councilwoman Ramos has suggestions that are more constructive as opposed to reverting. And so I thought that was useful. She has a proposal that talks about this, that makes this an independent agency, and that aims to focus its work. There's a key part of it that both she and I agree on, which is all legislation should go through that department, and not just when the council people choose for it to go through the department, as it happens right now. And I think, I had wanted to go back to a time where the dean of the law school and some other things were on the board, but her suggestion is to leave the board as, I think, the mayor and the president of the city council. And while I don't entirely abstractly agree with that, I understand that she has good reasons for why she's doing it that way. And so, I think my thought here is just we provide guidance that backs up her amendment, and calls for independence and calls for everything to go through. So, and the other thing I would say about it is, part of when I say focuses its mission, that section of the charter has a lot of too little and too much clauses in it, where it says it's kind of meandering. And so I think that it could be scaled down to be more focused. And I put a mission out there that I think works pretty well based on conversations I've had. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I was going to say on the dean of the law school pieces of that, I don't want to speak for my colleague directly, Ron Weish, but I recall, him and probably the other dean of the Maryland Law School probably thinking, while this might be cool for us to be mandated by charter to be on, kind of a why us? And, for us, it might be a better way to say, really why them? There's hundreds and thousands of people with different positions that could be chosen, and why would a dean of a law school be put on this? And so I can imagine, I could be wrong. He might get upset and say, darn it, I really liked being on that, but I can imagine that it's always seemed strange to us, I think, that they were.
So with respect to having specific members that are not under the purview of, city employment or some other appointment method, there's no way to mandate that any individual or any organization take part in a board, commission, or other city operations. So the law department, when the OIG board was both being amended and I guess, originally established at those same costs with respect to having deans and requiring those individuals to participate. So if you go back and read the bill reports from those pieces of legislation, you'll see that advice as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. It did seem weird, and so maybe this is just a way to clean that up a little bit, or consider other people that you're thinking, Andy, you and Councilmember Ramos.
Yeah, I mean, look, the status quo, I think that the board is made up by the 3 citywide electeds, and it's temporary. And I think my thought was in the old world, like it is in the old world, it was insulated from political pressures on purpose. In the new world, it is subject to political pressures on purpose. I think that, I think there's value, and I know Councilwoman Ramos is willing to have discussion about this. I think there's value in having somebody that isn't one of the 2 citywide electeds on that board. But I don't know that we're going to come up with the right mix. And I think the reason that Councilwoman Ramos has come up with those 2 is because it increases the likelihood of passage when she's making some other pushes and stretches. So there may be value for us, and there may be a value-based appeal to suggesting that that board be broader. But I would like to see it get done. I would like to see it become independent. I would like to see it focus the mission. So I'm more concerned about that part of it than I am, complicating her work on who the board is. So that being said, if people here want to add a clause to that about who the board should be, I'm totally open to it. My drafting of this was an attempt to sort of compromise, get the charter behind the good work that Councilwoman Ramos has talked about doing.
Could we put in something similar to the language that you've already proposed to just further emphasize that we hope that the makeup of the board, what's the words I'm trying to say, that the makeup of the board further emphasizes that the importance of this department and the need to not, how am I trying to say this? That it not be subject to the whims of the wind.
It should be rooted in independence instead of rooted in, I won't say like subservience, but but something like that. I could work out if there's agreement in the general direction. I could throw some language out. We could see on that, or if folks have something right now, I'm open to it.
Roger, Emily, how do you feel about that general direction?
I mean, I agree with Andy that it's hard when power is already so concentrated in those 2 people, but if that's going to help something get passed, I understand the sentiment. So I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. Thanks.
And that I support it as well, Andy. I think giving guidance like that will be a better use of our time than trying to come up with a word for word proposal to compete with Councilwoman Ramos.
Yeah. I have no interest in competing with her. I would like this commission to give its support to the work that she's trying to do.
Yeah. And that lines up exactly with what we were talking about doing with the Cohen proposal for the redistricting. So I think, okay. I'm going to put in my notes, Emily and Roger, that the committee recommends following Andy's proposed language of support and emphasis That sentence has no end. It's just going to end right there. Support and emphasis. All right, well, I scribble those notes. Andy, do you want to move over to the referendum one?
Sure. All the other charter counties have the power of referendum, where via petition, the voters can stop something from, or can stop something from being implemented. It would require us to create an implementation timeline, like 30 days or 60 days after the signage of something or signing of something, and then it would open a window for there to be referendum petition in order to put that on the ballot. All the other charter counties have some version of it, and the state of Maryland has some version of it. I don't know whether we ever found out whether that's one of those things that Baltimore City is allowed to do without the legislature. But if it is, I suggest we align Baltimore City with the rest of the charter counties. Do any of the staff know? I know at some point there was a question about whether Baltimore City had the power to do this under the state constitution, or whether it would take state action in order to enable it. Does any of the staff know that there was an answer to that question?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Nina?
And sorry, this was the power or authority to do what?
Referendum.
I don't know that we have an answer to that question. At least I don't recall that we have one. I will reach out to our law department and confirm. I don't think that we do, but I will make sure to get you a firm response on that.
Yeah.
Well, I also don't think that there's an explicit prohibition against it either, which I don't know.
The question would be, is this one of those things that the other charter counties get to do, but we don't get to do, right? Like, is this one of those things that the General Assembly has to approve for us to change in our charter, even though the other ones have it, or are we allowed to change it in our charter?
So, and this would be for the, I guess, citizen petitioning a novel piece of legislation to the charter, or of reviewing an ordinance passed by the council and signed by the mayor.
Yeah, so the way that it is in all the other charter counties is that they have a implementation period from the time that the bill is signed until the time that the bill is implemented. And during that implementation period, residents can collect petitions can submit petitions in order to put it on the ballot. And if they collect enough petitions to make it valid, enactment is postponed until the next election cycle, and that ordinance is put on the ballot. And again, all the other charter counties have it. We're the only one that doesn't.
If we don't have it, there's probably a good reason for it, meaning we may have to go to the state, but to Nina's point, we need to go to the law department and confirm that. I apologize that we don't have that answer for you right now.
I guess the question is, does this committee support it? I mean, no need to go to the, outside of curiosity, no need to go to the law department if this committee doesn't support it.
Emily here. I support this. I think it's really important. Did you have ideas on the specific timeline? I know you had an older proposal mirroring other language. Do you have thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that there's because all the other charter counties have it, there's a model that we can look at of both the timeline and the signature threshold. And I'm entirely open on what those are, as long as they're within the confines of the other, as long as we're not having a very long window and a very high threshold or something like that. You know, so as long as it's within the bounds that are set by the other counties, I would be okay with whatever the commission or the committee chose.
And you said during an email about electronic signatures, right? That you didn't want to include that in the specific language, but that it would theoretically be, I guess, allowed.
I would love it if we could talk about electronic signatures, but I'm willing to leave it undefined. Like the other counties, I don't think define it. I think they use the language of petition, which is defined in the state constitution. I think there's a little bit of slippery space for us to do electronic petitions within referendum, but I don't want to push that on this. I'd rather just this be without explaining that.
And then just to add, I'm not sure where the bill ended up this session. I do not think it got passed, but there was specific legislation in Annapolis concerning electronic signatures for ballot measures. So that was something that was being decided at the state level. So I don't know that that would be something that could be determined at the local level.
I can tell you all about it. I was I have the plaintiff in the lawsuit against the state that started it in 2020, and I was one of the big advocates on it. What I think the case, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because I'm not pushing it right now. But I actually think that the way that the state constitution is worded would give us the ability to do electronic signatures just on referendum if we wanted to. Yeah. So, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much because I think that's an entirely separate conversation. And I'd rather just see us get referendum and then work at a statewide level to allow electronic signatures. And no, it didn't pass. It did not get out of committee. So.
Roger, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm okay going forward. I'm mindful, though, of the issue with the state policy piece maybe governing it, but I think it's a good idea, and I would support taking it to the full commission. Sure.
And I've always thought the same. From the first time I heard you talk about it, Andy, I was like, well, that makes complete sense. Like, why don't we have that? So I'm the same as Emily and Roger. If we're not preempted by state law, why don't we have this?
And I mean, recommending it, even if we get the answer that it's preempted by state law, is not necessarily bad, I think, right? Like, you know, we could even say, though the law department, in that scenario, we could say, though the law department has said we can't do this, we still think it's something the city should have. And, you know, our document encourages the council to talk to the state delegation about it. Okay. Good on that one. The other one is proportional representation on the commission. And the idea there would be this commission. The Charter Commission, and I think the way that I worded it originally was right now. So right now in the commissions and boards section of the charter, it has this thing about like fair representation from multiple parties. Okay, that part is fine, but I think we should be explicit about that on the Charter Commission. And the suggestion that I had made there was instead of one member or a certain number of members don't have to be of the dominant political party, that every recognized political party should have one representative on the Charter Commission. And I think that the argument there would be that, you know, political parties are a key organizing component. If we want more of them and we want them to be healthier, we have to tie material things to people who are engaged in them so that they're not entirely symbolic. You know, that would go a little bit further than the current proportionality in the charter, and it would specify that political parties were, as recognized by the state, were to get a seat on the commission. I saw Nina had a hand up.
Yep, I was just going to reference, as you obviously just referenced at the end there, the requirement of having one non-majority party member for every, like, for boards or commissions 5 and under, and then 2 for over. So you covered it.
Yep, and I mean, I think that specifying because that's good. I appreciate it, and I think it's a good nod toward some proportionality. But I think specifying that political parties get a seat, political parties recognized by the State Board of Elections get a seat, or on the commission is, especially with the Charter Commission, useful because it's supposed to be the people's commission. It's supposed to be the people's document. And those people are represented by parties that don't just vote in the primary. And in fact, with charters being voted on in the general election where everybody's participating, I think there's a case to be made that, each party should have a representative.
So the way that you word it there, Andy, that every political party gets a person and not so much that out of X amount of people, so many people have to be from different political parties. I support it that way. So at my day job for Montgomery County, 1 out of our 3 Montgomery County commissioners has to be from a different political party. So in reality, it always, for the past, 30, 40 years, it has worked out to be 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. Thank you, Ben, for everything. And the 1 Republican is at the end of his term, and it's very difficult for the county exec to find somebody to replace him. And so I just see from my day job a lot of problems with mandating you must have X amount of people versus if you tell the parties you get somebody and the party has to put somebody forward. I see that as being a more workable situation where you're not stuck in a logjam of, oh, well, we can't find anyone. If that makes sense. It may be a useless worry, but it's just what I see every day.
I think opt-in for parties is a good way to go, especially with the commission that has 23 people on it, right? Like, it's one thing if it's 5 people, but if it's 20, if it's 5 people, it's actually not proportional, right? Like, if it's 5 people, it's overcompensating in some ways in a place like Baltimore. But if it's 23 people, it's closer to proportionality to allow there to be 1 person from the smaller parties, and in Baltimore that includes the Republicans. So, like, yeah. So I don't know. That's this proposal.
Emily, Roger, what are your thoughts?
So this one I admittedly felt a little less passionate about. I understand where you're coming from, Andy. It's just, and this is the People's Commission, that's a great point. But I can envision how this, and other people who've been on the commission maybe longer before might have better ideas about this, but could make it difficult to work together and get something accomplished. But I mean, it depends on how many people of a certain party would really be involved, which I am guessing is not going to be many. But it depends on how selective we want to be with the proposals that we're bringing forward. If we only want to bring forward, 3 to the whole commission, I probably wouldn't choose this one. But I could go either way, which I guess is kind of unhelpful.
That totally makes sense. I think to the number part, I'm willing for it to be 1. I think 1 person. Yeah, 1 person per party recognized by the State Board of Elections at the time of the convening of the Charter Commission, right? And so what that would, if we convened it right now, that would not even mean, that would mean the Libertarians, the No Labels Party. If we convened it in 6 months, it would mean the Libertarians, the Greens, Forward, and No Labels, plus a Republican or something like that. But I think in a commission, like I said, I think that current way that the charter is worded is actually overcompensating for those smaller parties. There's not 20% of Republicans in Baltimore, and giving 1 out of 5 seats to a Republican, I think, is overcompensating. But in a big commission like the Charter Commission, I think there's value in allowing 1 seat for each of those parties. And I think the other value to it is if we assume that more healthier parties are better, and I'm not sure that everybody shares that assumption, but it's my starting point, that more healthier parties are better, creating actual things that people can do as a result of being a member of that party helps people to want to be part of other parties. So like, I'm a Green, I can't participate in primaries. I can't get nominated to the state board of elections. I can't get nominated to the local board of elections. And so those things disincentivize people from helping to build healthy alternative small parties. And so I think that allocating 1 spot on a commission like this, where we are recommending things to be on the general election ballot, where everybody gets to vote, helps to begin to push against that and balance that a little bit.
One I agree with.
Thank you. Roger, what's your thought?
I don't necessarily oppose it. So would the parties select those individuals, and then who is the party?
Central committees are recognized by the state. So I think you could, if you wanted to be really formalistic about it, you could say state central committees or city central committees, if they exist, would be responsible for supplying to the mayor 1 name for a person that is affiliated with their party or something like that.
Again, I'm not necessarily, I don't see a major problem with it either. As long as it doesn't make it difficult for a commission to get a composition together. It made me feel a little better as I was listening to you about that the parties themselves would provide it. When you have an elected trying to find someone of that party, it could be kind of burdensome at times, especially depending upon how this could look in the future. What if there are 20 recognized parties? So, which I don't foresee at this, given how hard it is. I don't at all foresee, but that makes it a little bit more administratively friendly. The other potential is, giving the mayor or council, 3 options and letting them choose off the list. But that's tying the hands of the parties that are providing the representation. So, and that makes it unusually complicated too. So, yeah, I don't feel like efficiency's that compromised here. So, no. Yeah, I don't mind it going forward for debate at the very least.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, I'd love this. And like, I want the idea to get heard. I appreciate that everybody here is like lukewarm positive. That's good enough. Like, I'll take that. I think it encourages debate, and I think putting it before the whole commission is useful. And if they say no, okay. If they say yes, then the council will have to decide.
It sounds like a good plan to me.
Excellent. Did we? I know we had some conversation about the standing nature of the Charter Commission too, versus the like once a decade thing. Like, is that something that we want to take on, or are we at time?
So my only concern with that one, Andy, is just that we're at mid-April. Are we going to be able to flesh that out and have a written out proposal and idea by the end of May?
So For Roger and Emily, I don't know that I think Joanne and I have been going back and forth on this. I had brought up the fact that this charter commission meets once a decade, and that it meets at best for 13 months once a decade, right? And in reality, this time it met for 8 months once a decade. And the complexity of the charter that we're trying to wrestle with, I think, makes it really hard to convene a group of people who are otherwise employed, otherwise busy, to assess the document in 8 months. And just to your timing question that you just brought up, right? Like, we are nearing crunch time and our time got cut in part, and we can't maybe address this. So, I mean, in Montgomery County, they have a standing charter commission. It's much more professionalized. It's much less citizen driven, I think. But
it's very time intensive. One of my bosses, the one Republican, is on it, and he is in hearings every week, and he has been for months.
Yep. So I think I hear your concern about the Montgomery County version, which is that it entirely changes the nature of this commission, right? Like, it becomes a professionalized thing where most of us probably wouldn't be able to be part of it. That being said, I do wonder if there's some value in they convene every election cycle part of it, or something like that, because it's silly to me when I think about this, that this commission convenes once a decade, right? This is the last bite at this apple that any commissioners get until 2033 or something like that. And that does not feel like enough time for people like us who are busy to wrap our heads around the complexities of the charter and to make significant suggestions for useful revisions. So I do hear your concern about the Montgomery County one, and that may not be the right alternative. But I do wonder if there's something we could do in the middle, in between, that suggests that this commission be convened every election cycle or every mayoral election cycle or something like that. So it is not 10 years from now, all of us are gone and the institutional memory of this commission evaporated, and a new group of folks are trying to figure this out in a time crunch.
Every election cycle would be every 2 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be every mayoral cycle. Like, anything is better than once a decade to me, right? Like, in my compromising approach, I'd take every 4 years instead of every 10 years.
Well, and somebody with more historical knowledge than me can correct me, but my understanding was that we are the first time operating under this article of the charter, and that all the charter review commissions before, so for example, the 2018 or back older, the one that Judge Friedman, Emily, Ben, and I all worked for Judge Friedman, so the one that he was on, that those were all just more ad hoc.
Yeah.
And those timelines were even more spread apart than every 10 years, right? That's what my memory says. Let's see, in our binders, we have 1945, 1964, 73, 2018. Maybe there was something in between. I think there was one in the 90s that maybe got skipped in there. But that's looking at more like every 10 to 20 years.
And our charter is in really bad shape. Our charter has too much stuff in it. It has become a Christmas tree for politicians who are looking to make sure that things stay the same. We don't have the ability for commissions like this to take on the big and difficult questions. I think every one of those commissions probably said, we're going to come in here and we're going to scale it down whatsoever. And then they realized that that's not something that a group of 23 people getting together once every couple of decades can do.
Andy, if we could pass something that says the Charter Review Commission has the power to go into the charter and just delete the extra stuff that is totally irrelevant and outdated, and the whole condemnation intersection that's preempted by state law, like I would love that. Can we get away from the part about the official time and the changing of the times in the spring and fall? It's not even correct in how it sets it out.
Like, I think if we had a chance, if we were a standing commission, we could take on the question you just talked about. I don't think as a ad hoc commission that gets together once a decade, we're ever going to be able to do things like that. I think that what you just described is exactly the value of having folks that are focused on this more regularly.
Well, and the 2018 commission recommended all that. Their report recommends deleting all those sections.
Yeah. I don't know. They got to it, but you know, as Vic said, they ran out of time to build the political case for it. You know, like they ran out of time to get it done. And you know, I would love. There's a billion things that I wish we could do, and I feel like meeting once a decade for 7 months or 13 months, even assuming that it met its full amount of time, just makes it very hard for a group of people who don't focus on this regularly to be able to do much more than backup council people and make some picking around the edges recommendations. So I don't know. There's no proposal for it, and I know there's more discussion to have on it. I guess my worry is that if we don't bring it up, it's gonna be up to people in 2033 to figure out.
Roger, any thoughts?
I mean, I agree. Maybe what are your thoughts on something like every mayoral election or something where we think the voter turnout would be kind of positive? You know, I don't know, a time that would make sense.
Every mayoral election would also tie to your idea of getting that political momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every mayoral, I prefer every mayoral election to once a decade. And I think it's palatable, and I think it is a incremental improvement over ad hoc or once a decade. And I think it has benefits. I think it, I think if, yeah, so I like that as a suggestion.
Just one question. I'm not opposed to it either. So it would be a commission every how many years? 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And would we find that there would be so many commissions that we would be constantly seeing back and forth updates though? Would it take away some continuity to the charter? And then I think the other question I had was, and this is just a minor one, if it is, on the election calendar, could it be presidential elections versus necessarily mayoral? Because then, to the point of political momentum, you have the highest possible voter turnout in a presidential election. And even if that's not a time when the mayor's elected, it's maybe a time independent of the mayor's election, which could be.
I think that's a good point. Like the charter could be changed to have the mayor get elected in the gubernatorial year, and then we would be there instead of in the presidential year. And the presidential year is the one with the most turnout, so right now, mayoral and presidential are the same, but if it got changed again, then it would be weird.
Can I ask a stupid question? So in Article 11, Section 1B, it's for interim commissions. It says that a charter review commission may be established by the mayor and city council no later than May 1st in any year that precedes a congressional election. Which one is the congressional election?
So that would be every 2 years.
Oh,
So that would mean every cycle. That would mean every election cycle had a charter commission before it. If congressional were the label.
so that's already in there as interim commissions.
And I mean, I think instead of giving, it says the mayor may.
Mayor and city council.
Right. And I think my suggestion would be make that may shall to some degree, and have more frequent meetings that aren't dependent on the mayor and the city council, but are dependent on the charter. And I mean that if that may became a shall, it would mean that there had to be one every 2 years.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with once every 4 years if that feels like a better incremental move forward.
Personally, I feel like the 4 years is a bit more realistic, just from a staffing and people point of view. Every 2 years, you might as well call it a standing commission.
Yeah. I mean, functionally, Montgomery County is convened every 2 years as a standing commission that meets in advance of every election. You know, and I know I appreciate your experience and hesitancy about adopting their model wholesale, and it feels like that middle ground is every presidential election.
So Roger, Emily, if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like the three of us are saying that we could support going to the full commission with the suggestion of every presidential election, changing it from every 10 years to every presidential election.
I agree.
I see your head nod, Roger. And I also see your cat. Very beautiful. Love it. Andy, while I scribble my notes, is there anything else you wanted to say on that?
No, I think if we could make that change, it would help us. It would help future commissions have more time and to be able to better fulfill their purpose as evaluators of the charter.
All right, one other thing I wanted to bring up was hopefully, maybe Emily, I know you have to leave soon, so maybe we can get this out here quick. So the certified ballot question put forth by Sinclair shifts the number of council districts to 8. I wanted to put to the group whether we would like to put forward our own proposal. And now that I'm starting to say this, I'm realizing that perhaps this is actually for Terrell's committee, because doesn't he have the city council? Or is... No. I'm sorry, my brain was going crazy. That is us. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to reorient myself there for a second. So as a legislative and oversight committee, do we want to put forth a proposal with a different number?
Julian, this was your idea about the write-off.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically. So Sinclair has gotten on the ballot the eight districts. If nothing else goes on the ballot about the number of districts and knowing how Baltimore City voters vote, that's going to get approved and we're going to shift to 8 districts.
So is your suggestion like put 15 on the ballot in order to compete with it?
Well, and let me look back at my notes. I did some math. If we put 12, like change from 14 to 12, that would increase the number in each district by about 6,000 people. So it's a justifiable number. I think 15, the problem you would run up is if you have 15 plus the president, you have an even number, and people don't like that. So 12 or 16.
And 12 would be like good enough. 12 is like, if we had to live with 12, that would be better than 8. But the hope in your amendment is that they both cancel each other out, basically. Yeah.
I have to run, but I agree, Julianne. I think you made a good point.
Thanks, Emily. And I don't want to just throw out a number like 22. Like, that has no basis. I'm sure the number 8 was justified with something, even if I don't agree with it.
So, I mean, this is how Montgomery County, so in 2020, Montgomery County defeated 2 charter amendments. One of them put a cap on the income or on property taxes, and the other one changed the composition of the council. And the council proposed competing charter amendments for both of them, and that's how they defeated both of them in 2020. Not only did they defeat them by negating them, they actually beat them because they had a counter proposal to go with. So the council's proposal won, and the petition proposal didn't get 50%. So I think that it's good defense and good strategy.
I wasn't sure. I was hoping maybe Aaron DeGraffenreich would be on here, or somebody that knew whether or not there was anything brewing in the county council of one of them putting forward an amendment with a number in it. Nina, do you by chance know?
I don't know of the specifics, but I do know there are a series of charter amendments that are going to be introduced likely in the near future. But I don't know the specific content, but I do know there is some concern over the change in the number of council members, but I can't say with certainty that there will be a specific charter amendment for that. But I believe that both of your reasoning is correct in if there is a counter proposal made that overlaps fairly directly with one that is going by referendum, that they would cancel each other out.
The easiest way to do that is the numbers, because they're necessarily mutually exclusive with each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because the other part of the write-on is that if there is a change in the number of council districts, how you would go about doing the redistricting, which I don't believe either the Cohen or Mosby redistricting proposals currently have anything speaking to that, or they didn't the last time I looked at them.
The most direct way to do competition in my mind would just be to take the pieces or whatever that group's amendment is and replace 8 with 12. And if everything else is the same, that's the best way to get your negation in my reading.
Roger, your thoughts?
I'm good with it, honestly.
With which it?
Sorry. 1 second. Explain again. Apologies.
So the write-on ballot provision that Sinclair put forward would change the number of council districts to 8. My suggestion is that we propose changing the number of council districts to 12, which would increase by about 6,000 people, the number of people in each district. If my math is correct, don't trust my math.
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned about the one taking the council districts down to 8, to say the least. And so I recall the discussion of this was about a rival, the rival plan might actually, am I right? It might actually even end up leading to a negation of the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that in mind, though, so is 12 the magic number? It's certainly better than 8.
Is 16 better than 14?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I think my thought would be that 16 is increasing the size of the council. And Sinclair could easily say, they're trying to increase the size of the council, we're trying to shrink it. Whereas 12 is shrinking, but not as much. And I think it's argumentatively much harder for them to make the case for 8 versus 12. Like when 16 is double the size of the one they're proposing, I think it's easier for them to make that argument. I mean, I think 12 is smart strategy.
Yeah. I'm good with status quo of where we are right now, of course, but I get why this might be useful in making status quo work. And there is, even if 12, let's pretend that, oh, wow, we get 12, boom, and that goes forward. That are we cool with that? That's where I was my brain was going, I think.
I mean, that would be the risk, right?
That's where, yeah.
Right. That's the risk with this strategy. I think in 2020, I don't think Montgomery County thought they were going to beat the 2 petition-based ones. I think they thought they were going to negate the 2 petition-based ones, and then they ended up winning. Not just winning theirs, but defeating the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think statistically in Baltimore City, you're not likely to see the same.
Well, that's because the council doesn't get up and do their political function, right? I mean, the council in Montgomery County's defeated 25% of them over the last 25 years. And that's because their council actually puts their resources and their money behind defeating the bad ones, And so I think you're right that in Baltimore, it's very likely that anything that's on is going to pass. And I think in the long term, we need to change that. But I think in the short term, playing defense on that is really good strategy.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm the only person in Baltimore City that votes no on things that are on the ballot.
Yeah,
I join you.
Yeah.
You're right. If it's on the ballot, it wins.
Yeah, people either vote yes or they just don't vote on it.
Yeah, I put some. Yeah, I mean, people vote yes, or a decent number of people vote no, right? But it's not 50%. But I mean, I think the other counties beat stuff. The other counties, majority of charter amendments win. But Baltimore has defeated 1 out of 51 since 1999, whereas Montgomery County has defeated a quarter of them. And Wicomico County, I think, has defeated more than have passed. So it is not charter. It is Baltimore City is uniquely bad at voting no.
Yeah. It'd be kind of an interesting conversation to have a panel on why is it that Baltimore City votes yes on everything and other people don't. So, I don't know how that would play out.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the data set that I put together on this, but I went through all of the charter amendments since 1999 and found which ones were petitioned, which ones got defeated, I think it's really interesting. And I'm sure you were in some international travel when I sent it out, I think, but there's a good data set there that lists every single one of them, the number of votes it got, whether it came by petition, and whether it came by council. And for the vast majority of them, it has a link to the text of the referendum. So.
Wow, that would be kind of fun to jump off with on such a discussion, but interesting. So again, remind me, 12 drops us by how many?
If my math is right, 6,000.
Yeah.
But remember, I'm a lawyer because I don't do math.
But a very good lawyer from a very good institution.
The best law school this side of the Patapsco.
Darn right. Best law school in northern part of Baltimore. Sorry. So on that though, I mean it drops total membership by what is it? 2 or 3 from 12 from what to 12?
14.
Yeah, so 2. Yeah, so even if we got stuck with it, to be honest, with the 6,000, given if the rational argument and not the political argument, but if the rational argument is you're trying to adjust the council seats to the drop in population, a drop of 2 seems reasonable,
You obviously don't want to drop 1 and wind up with an even number.
Right. Yeah. You drop down to 8 though, and that there's a lot about what that means. That's not about adjusting to population.
I tried to do the math for how that would be, and I failed. I just couldn't wrap my brain around it.
They did it somewhere.
I'm sure it's published somewhere if I looked hard enough, or even not hard enough.
So interesting, really interesting. I think it would be a fun discussion for the full commission to have.
Yeah.
I mean, my position is we should close that negation loophole. But in the absence of closing that negation loophole, we should use that negation loophole, right? Like, to me, that negation loophole is not good democratic practice, right? Something where voters voted for both things means neither thing passes. I understand why it is and how it is, but it is not a good way to inspire confidence in democratic institutions.
Well, also, if you could be like, wait, if both of them pass, that means the same people are voting for the same thing. Like, did they even read it?
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say is the cases where the most direct competition, the most recent version, as I said, of a case where direct competition has been set up, they did not both pass. Like the one sponsored by the council passed and the one sponsored by petition in Montgomery County didn't pass, And so I think setting up that direct competition to the point you just made changes how voters are evaluating it. Like I think there's a chance that you get one or the other that way.
Well, you're not going to like me for this one, Andy, but this basically with what I've been seeing lately, I'm wondering if the best charter amendment would be to make it harder to introduce a ballot initiative, but you're going to come get me.
The people we should make it harder for are the council, right? Like the council has introduced all but 2 of them in Baltimore City, and that's because the charter is written in a way that is so constraining that if they want to reallocate funds, they got to pass a charter amendment. So we should make it harder for the charter or for the council to do it by writing a charter that is streamlined and has the right charter stuff in it so that the right amount of attention can be paid to the ones that get on there. I mean, we can't change that. That's state law to change that. And I think I understand the instinct. And again, this is a good panel discussion to have. But I understand the instinct, but I think the right thing to do is to build the power to defeat bad charter amendments instead of making it harder for rich people to buy their way onto the ballot. So
I get you.
But again, this is a better panel discussion than it is a second hour of this meeting, and I don't actually think that's a bad idea. And I think Kobe would be interested in it, and I think Davon would be interested in it. Maybe Julianne would be interested in it. Like after this commission is over,
The other
convening,
Julianne?
or you, like convening if there were somebody at a Central Public University who was in charge of a Department of Public Affairs and wanted to put together a panel on this, I would imagine that it would, be well attended. So
I think that would be that person would be really smart. I would have to ask. Let's do that. That would be fun.
All right, so that was the last thing on my list to cover here this evening. Roger, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, I think I'd already indicated at an earlier meeting, and I had to miss that one that I was going to pull back the one about the council president. So
Yeah.
Although it would have been fun, but I don't think it was going anywhere.
Well, and did you hear in the presentation by, I gotta look back at my notes because
Councilman Dorsey.
Dorsey, yes, Dorsey
Yes.
was hoping that we, as a charter commission, would make that recommendation.
Well, maybe he could do it.
He wanted us to do it.
That's what I said to him. I was like, why do you need us to have your back on it? Just do it.
Yeah. I'm sorry I missed that too. That would have been kind of fun. Doggone it. He's my council member. So.
Mine too.
It's recorded. You could go back and watch it.
I will. Was he upset that I pulled it?
We didn't tell him that.
Okay, thank you.
It was for us to hear from him, not for him to hear from us.
Gotcha. Good. Perfect. If you're eating yogurt, I'm going to go get some now. I'm ready to go.
Ice cream.
Now that's even
Jose
better.
came to the door with a look of, is she done yet? And handed me a cup of ice cream.
Nicely done.
So one note before we do finish, this Thursday is the public comment meeting, 6:00, also virtual. I don't have any idea if we will get a lot or no public comments. It will be recorded as always. So if you, Nina.
Do you guys have like a social media graphic for that meeting that we could maybe help to push out if you're looking to increase reach for public engagement? I don't know if the same week, if that would be helpful. But if so, we could try and help there.
I don't know how we would have a social media graphic. Like, I don't know how it would exist. Who would have made it?
Yeah.
I mean, I can make something in Canva that we can put out if you want, Nina. But it's going to be pretty simple. It's gonna, I don't know if everybody saw my graphic about supporting persimmons as the state fruit, but I did that in about 5 minutes. So I could probably make a graphic here if we needed one.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. If you'd like to, I'm happy to make sure that we share it.
Okay. Do you all give me authorization to make a graphic and send it to Nina?
Absolutely. As the leader of this committee and of nothing else, I say go for it, Andy, because even if it hits social media tomorrow or Thursday morning, I feel like that's when they'll see it. They'll be like, oh, I need to call in tonight. It's probably just as useful as if it went out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Nina, do you have a link for that meeting?
I think it should be posted on the city council website. That's usually where they post the link. So if you'd like, I can send that to you so that you can include it.
Yeah, if you can send that to me, what I'll do with it is I'll just put a QR code on there that is like, that people can scan and it goes to that link. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think I just forwarded you the invite, Andy, too. I mean, I thought it went to all commission members. but
Oh, I
just
guess it did.
yeah.
Is this link the public facing one, Julianne? I don't want to have everybody like on the back end.
Yeah,
I'll
probably.
put what's on the
Oh, there, she just put it in the chat too.
We need
What-
to ensure that all future commissions have graphic design expertise.
And can we ditch WebEx? I'm just not WebEx conversant.
I second that. We unfortunately have been stuck with WebEx since the beginning of the pandemic when there was that whole Zoom issue, and we never.
I mean,
We never
we
moved
use
on.
Teams at my work, and it works great.
So, you know, I know we were talking about how bloated the charter is and how much stuff it has in it that it shouldn't have, but maybe this commission could recommend that the city government shall have a public conferencing platform, and it shall not be WebEx.
I like it, Andy. I like it.
That's the only one that would end up passing. Everybody, like all the
Yeah.
council, would be like, yes, yes, finally, somebody with the courage to demand the real stuff.
I vote that
We
we
should-
put you on the group writing the report, Andy, so that you can put that in there.
We should just do a running kind of mock what the commission should look like, and then see if at the end of our meetings we want to introduce it or not. But I definitely think we have to ensure that there's graphic designer expertise on future councils as well, commissions.
Excellent. All right. Well, I will get some graphic that has colors of Baltimore and a link and some words and some, you know, other stuff or something. I don't know. I'll have it to you by tomorrow morning. You know.
Sounds good. And is this the public meeting of just this subcommittee or of the entire commission?
No, it's the full commission.
Okay, so do we need
Yeah.
to get kind of like approval from the chair and or vice chair? I know that I just don't want to share something without approval and have
Yeah, I joked
communication
before that I'm only the leader of this committee, but Terrell and Reverend Little call me one of the co-chairs, so I think you're okay. I worked out all the logistics with Ben on doing it virtually and the other things, so I think we're okay.
Okay, and we'll just make sure that once you share a graphic, Andy, that we send it to the whole commission so they have it as well to share out on their platforms if they wish.
All right. And I'll give you Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram versions of it. So.
All right, Ben might send out a link to do a poll and see if we need to schedule another full commission meeting here in the last 2 weeks of April. Otherwise, our next full commission meeting is scheduled for May 7th. So hopefully you have that marked on your calendars. It was in the calendar that Ben sent around back in February, I think, beginning of February. So May 7th is the next scheduled one. Hopefully that we'll get another one on the calendar, because I think it'll take us more than one meeting to make it through all the committee's proposals. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Andy, thank you so much. Roger, and you too, Nina, and our silent partner, Michael Wells. Is there any last things you all have before we head out for the evening?
Yeah, it's just been enjoyable. Have a great evening, and thank you for the meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all so much. I'll go through my notes tomorrow and circulate them so that we can all be on the same page going into the next full commission meeting about what and how we're going to present these things.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Enjoy. Thanks.